Hi, I'm Alicia and welcome to my channel Papercraft Secrets. Today I'm sharing a tutorial for an album that I created recently. It's using the brand new Nightfall Collection by Mintay Papers. And I'm also using one of the new Mintay Chippie's album bases to create my album. This is a fairly simple project. It can be done in about 3 hours, and I'm going to take you step by step through exactly how I created this project, the products that I've used, and how I laid all of the bits and pieces onto the album. So let's get started. So I started this project with one of the new Mintay Chippie's album bases. This is a rectangular sized album, and it's got the pretty filigree edges on the front cover. I'm also using some Art Alchemy Sparks acrylic paint, and the color is Chest of Gold, and it's by Prima. So the first step is to paint the edges of your album. I think ideally 2 coats of paint would be best for this project. In hindsight, I actually only did 1 coat of paint, and I did feel that there was it lacked a little bit of coverage. So I would probably do 2 coats of paint. You only have to do the edges of the album because we're going to cover the middle section with paper. So it's basically just around the edges on both sides of the album. The next step was to take paper number 3 from the Nightfall collection and to cut it into 5-inch squares. So we're going to get 4 5-inch squares from this page. And the next paper is page number 1. Again, we're making 5-inch squares. We're going to use the reverse, this night sky page. There's our 5-inch squares. So we've got 8 so far. We need another 12 by 12 sheet now. And we're using number 4. So we're going to make another set of 5-inch squares. So that will give us 12 5-inch squares. We will only actually use 11. I'm using a page from the Fall Festival collection in this project as well. Now this is number 5 from the Fall Festival collection, and this is a completely different Mintay collection, but I wanted to use a white distressed wooden background to allow my papers in the Nightfall collection to really pop against a lighter background. So I'm using this one. If you've got another white wooden distressed paper, feel free to use that, or to pick something from the Nightfall collection that you like. We're cutting these squares at 4 3/4 by 4 3/4. And again, we're going to cut 12 of them, but we'll only use 11 in the album. So you'll need 3 pages of whatever paper that you decide to use, because you'll be able to get 4 squares from each page. So we now have our 12 dark pages and our 12 light pages. Using liquid glue, we need to apply the white lighter page onto the darker page. And this will be the base for each page in our album. you can see that we have a nice dark border around the lighter page. And these squares will fit on each of our album pages. So you can see here how we have painted all around the edges of the album page, and our paper will cover in the middle. Now originally I planned to use an album ring and have the album hole in the center of my album. But unfortunately I actually changed my plan here because my album ring wasn't big enough. And the way I designed the album, it didn't really work out as well as I planned. Because this is my very first album using the Mintay Chippies, I had a lot to learn. And I've left these little things in the video so that you can learn through my mistakes and create a successful album the first time around. So my plan was to have the hole at the top. So I went through every page and created a hole at the top of the album. But then I actually changed this plan as we go forward in this process. If you had a large album ring, you could most certainly do this to your album and have your hole in the top at the center. My next step now is to glue our papers onto every page of our album. So this is a very simple, easy process to complete, and you want your papers on both sides of the album pages. To begin with, I was going to have the paper on the front cover, but I actually decided to take that off because I wanted to have this pasted down nicely on my front cover, and the paper behind it looks really silly. So I didn't use my 12th little square. I only put the pages on the rest of the album pages. So what I decided to do instead was I used some Art Alchemy wax, and this color here is Electric Violet. And this is like a wax paint that you can rub onto chipboard. And I just used my finger to rub that all on. It's quite messy. And then I chose another color from the matte waxes. This is an Art Alchemy matte wax, and it's called Patina Green. So I used that one to sort of blend the two colors together. And I chose these colors because I felt that they matched the Nightfall collection. So when I had my fancy filigree album on top, we would see that pretty blue and green colors coming through the filigree. So there we go. So we've got the gold cover with the green and the blue showing through underneath. And I was really happy with how those colors matched the collection. I then took the number 6 page and I fussy cut out all of the frames. And I'm also using the brand new paper die cuts for this collection. So for each page, I'm choosing a frame and I'm choosing some die cuts to decorate the page. And the die cuts are amazing. They certainly take out all of the fussy cutting work, so you don't have to do any fussy cutting. And they're just stunning. The floral clusters in these die cuts are absolutely stunning. So my aim was to have a photo frame and some fussy cut elements, or some die cuts around the photo frame. I considered using flowers, but my goal was to keep this album as flat as possible. So I resisted using bulky embellishments, and I wanted to keep everything nice and flat. So you can see here how I'm laying out a frame on each page and how I'm laying out a die cut on each page as well. So if you are creating an album for the first time and this is your first project, I would keep this process very simple and just use a frame and a die cut and a little title. For more experienced and advanced crafters, then you can really go to town on decorating every page in as much detail as you like. But sometimes keeping it simple is nice as well. So the sentiments in this kit are sort of like a date night type album. So I imagined that the photographs in this album would be a couple with photographs over the years of going out to weddings or going to the races or going out for dinner, and just sort of like keeping those memories in one place in an album. It's like a romantic album of a relationship between a couple. In my mind, I pictured the photos to be in a Polaroid strip and just sort of stuck on over the top. I was happy with the design for these pages, so I'm going to commit to gluing them down with some liquid glue. So I've glued on my flower cluster, my frame and my sentiment, and for the moment I'm going to call that page done. So on this page I've got 2 die cuts and a frame overlapping. On this page I have a large die cut and then an oval frame and then the words date night overlapping. For this page I have a large floral cluster, a rectangle frame, and then the sentiment Moonlight Magic. And for this page I've got 2 floral clusters and a leaf, my frame overlapping, and a candlestick. Alright, let's turn those over and let's do the other side. Select my frames, select my die cuts, I felt like I had used up most of the die cuts, and I realized that I had nothing much for the front cover. So I then remembered that I actually fussy cut the fussy cut elements page, and that I'd probably like to use some of those fussy cut elements as well. First I thought, well, I'll just glue down what I'm happy with, and I was happy with this page because it has the red wine and the grapes and the moon, and I felt like that was a nice romantic sort of setup for a date night. And this was the fussy cutting page, the number 9 page, or the back of the front cover on your 12 by 12. So I had all of those already pre-cut. I also chose to use the cardboard sticker sheet for some more sentiments. I felt like I needed some more sentiments. So this gave me a lot more to work with, and I was relieved because I felt like, oh, I'm running out of die cuts here. I need some more to play with. So I just used these the same way that I used the die cuts and just positioned them around the frames, trying to make them look nice and layered and interesting with a variety of shapes and colors. And then I just went through and found some sticker sentiments that I could use. And once I was happy with the design, I started to glue it all down. This one I thought Let the Music Play suited the record player in this page, on this page. So I added that sentiment in from the cardboard sticker sheet, and I figured that there would be a dancing element to one of the date nights, so that would be relevant. Time to Dream, I liked that sentiment from the sticker sheet. So just gluing this one down now. So you can see how I layered these little jars or lanterns on top of each other to try to create a bit of a scene look there, and a leaf and a flower or two, sort of overlapping them all and layering them all into the one design. Just working on this one now. This one's got the mirror and the frame, this over frame, the wine, the cheese. Is that cheese? No, I think that's a corkscrew. It does kind of look like a cheese platter though, doesn't it? And then I'm going to add Love by the Moon for the sentiment. Okay, we're just doing the last page now and the front cover. The front cover, of course, I wanted to be special and I wanted it to have floral clusters on it, so I saved 2 floral clusters for the front cover. So you can see how I am repositioning these elements, trying different combinations and experimenting with what I think looks nice. In the end, I used the sentiment Midsummer Night. I'm ready to glue that one down now. The designing of the elements is probably my favorite part of the creation of the album. Just looking for a little sentiment or something for this page. Now thinking about this front cover. I like the word summer night because I love that font, so I thought I might use those words. Just going through and finding some sentiments for the pages that I didn't use a sentiment on. I'm just adding that little cluster there for the sentiment to sit on, so it's not sort of sitting out on its own. Back to the front cover now. I was thinking maybe if I use these 2 fussy cut floral clusters, that would give a beautiful bit of wow factor to the front. And I wanted to add some Prima flowers on top of that. So I glue these down, and then I think maybe I'll just add a little bit of height to my front cover because this can be a little bit chunky, so I allowed myself to use a little bit of cardboard to create some height on this beautiful front cover. It's so pretty, isn't it? So I'm just gluing on the title, just going to sit on the fussy cutting, and then this second bit will sit on the album cover with a little love heart. Just gluing on my flowers, a cluster of 3. And I was thinking about possibly using some ribbon, but I changed my mind on the color and I ended up going with white to add some contrast to the colors. So now I'm going to try using my album ring, but what I found with the album ring is that I think I only had a 2.5 centimeter one and it was actually too small. So if you're going to have a go with using an album ring, you will need a large album ring, not a small one, for the pages to actually flick through properly. So you can see how my my album won't flick through because the ring is too small. So that didn't work for me because I only had the small ring. So then I decided I would try using a ribbon to go through the little hole. Unfortunately, I had a little bit of trouble with my ribbon because my pages were then upside down because I did them all the one way, and it was sort of, they were kind of upside down. Every second page was upside down. So this caused me to have a little bit of a think about my album. Even though I loved the ribbon up the top, I didn't like the back of my pages being upside down. So I decided that I needed to have my ribbon on the side of the album so that the pages could fold out to the side. So I used that little hole in the flower there as my new hole for my album. And I threaded the ribbon through that hole instead. Now this worked a lot better. When I opened my album, my pages were all up the right way, so I was really happy about that. I then decided that maybe a little bit of gold lace along the bottom of each of the pages would be nice. I eventually add some gold lace to the top as well. Now, remember me saying at the beginning that I really felt that I should have given the album 2 coats of paint. I wanted to add a little bit of wax color over the top of the gold paint because I felt it was just a little bit gappy. So I took the waxes again in the patina green and the electric violet, and I rubbed some color along the tops of each page to just fill in those little bits that the second coat of paint would have covered, but also to add a little bit of color to each of the pages as well. Because I changed my mind about the hole, I needed to then cover up that hole that I punched the first time. So I covered this up in a few different ways on each page. On some of the pages, I just added some extra embellishments to cover the hole up. And then once that hole was covered, I could then add some more of the gold lace and finish the page at the top. For the pages where I couldn't get the embellishments to go all the way up to the top, I used a gold star to hide the hole. And I just sprinkled some gold stars as embellishments throughout the pages to tie that in. And because it fits the theme of the album, the night dating and the moon and the stars and that sort of thing. So I felt that the stars were a nice little add-on to the album. And I sprinkled them over all of the pages. So the album's just about finished now. I added some sparkly little embellishments to the front cover to cover up that hole in the front cover, and also just to add some decoration to the front cover. And I just needed to loosen my ribbon just slightly because it was getting a little bit fatter. The album was getting a bit fatter after I added the stars. I finished up this album with some mixed media sprinkling of some Kaiser mists on top. I did one in a white ink, which I think adds a nice contrast to the colours and the papers. You can add as little or as much as you want with the inks, and then you just have to wait for it to dry. So added in some purple Kaiser Mist ink as well, and I did this on every page to just create a bit more atmosphere to the pages and a little bit of that mixed media feel. And I was really happy with how this album turned out. For my first try with a Mintay Chippie album base, it was a really successful project and quite an easy project to put together in about 3 hours. It's now ready for the photos to go in, which I want to print into a little Polaroid strip and just sort of staple or attach them in some way at the top of at the side of the page, sort of overlapping the frame. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. I'd love to see your take on this project with the beautiful new Nightfall papers and the Mintay Chippies album bases. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching and have a lovely crafty day.